Top 94 René Descartes quotes. I think therefore am. Doubt is the origin of wisdom. The reading of all good books is like a conversation with the finest minds of past centuries. You just keep pushing. You just keep pushing. I made every mistake that could be made. But I just kept pushing. Conquer yourself rather than the world. If you would be a real seeker after truth, it is necessary that at least once in your life you doubt, as far as possible, all things. We do not describe the world we see the world we can describe. Mathematics is a more powerful instrument of knowledge than any other that has been bequeathed to us by human agency. It is not enough to have a good mind, the main thing is to use it well. The only thing that I know is that I know nothing. I can doubt everything except one thing, and that is the very fact that I doubt. Simply put, I think, therefore I am. Nothing comes out of nothing. Except our own thoughts, there is nothing absolutely in our power. Divide each difficulty into as many parts as is feasible and necessary to resolve it. To know what people really think, pay attention to what they do rather than what they say. Any community that gets its laughs by pretending to be idiots will eventually be flooded by actual idiots, who mistakenly believe that they're in good company. Science is practical philosophy. Wonder is the first of all the passions. All is to be doubted. He who hid well, lived well. The reading of all good books is indeed like a conversation with the noblest men of past centuries who were the authors of them, nay, a carefully studied conversation in which they reveal to us none but the best of their thoughts. It is possible that I am dreaming right now and that all of my perceptions are false. An optimist may see a light where there is none, but why must the pessimist always run to blow it out? I know that I exist. The question is, what is this I that I know? Intuition is the undoubting conception of a pure and attentive mind, which arises from the light of reason alone, and is more certain than deduction. How can you be certain that your whole life is not a dream? Masked, I advance. With me, everything turns into mathematics. Each problem that I solved became a rule, which served afterwards to solve other problems. He lives well who is well hidden. I desire to live in peace and to continue the life I have begun under the motto, to live well you must live unseen. Reason is nothing without imagination. The senses deceive from time to time, and it is prudent never to trust wholly those who have deceived us even once. Everything is self-evident. Whenever anyone has offended me, I try to raise my soul so high that the offense cannot reach it. But in my opinion, all things in nature occur mathematically. The chief cause of human errors is to be found in the prejudices picked up in childhood. I have concluded the evident existence of God, and that my existence depends entirely on God in all the moments of my life, that I do not think that the human spirit may know anything with greater evidence and certitude. In God there is an infinitude of things which I cannot comprehend, nor possibly even reach in any way by thought, for it is the nature of the infinite that my nature, which is finite and limited, should not comprehend it. Nothing is more fairly distributed than common sense. No one thinks he needs more of it than he already has. To live without philosophizing is in truth the same as keeping the eyes closed without attempting to open them. When I consider this carefully, I find not a single property which with certainty separates the waking state from the dream. How can you be certain that your whole life is not a dream? Illusory joy is often worth more than genuine sorrow. The greatest minds are capable of the greatest vices as well as of the greatest virtues. In order to improve the mind, we ought less to learn than to contemplate. There is nothing more ancient than the truth. Intuitive knowledge is an illumination of the soul, whereby it beholds in the light of God those things which it pleases Him to reveal to us by a direct impression of divine clearness. A state is better governed which has few laws, and those laws strictly observed. Common sense is the most widely shared commodity in the world, for every man is convinced that he is well supplied with it. Give me extension and motion, and I will construct the universe. There is nothing so far removed from us to be beyond our reach, or so far hidden that we cannot discover it. There is a great difference between mind and body, insomuch as body is by nature always divisible, and the mind is entirely indivisible. Few look for truth. Many prowl about for a reputation of profundity by arrogantly challenging whichever arguments are the best. Your joy is your sorrow unmasked, and the self-same well from which your laughter rises was oftentimes filled with your tears. Truths are more likely to be discovered by one man than by a nation. The only secure knowledge is that I exist. The two operations of our understanding, intuition and deduction, on which alone we have said we must rely in the acquisition of knowledge. The principal use of prudence, of self-control, is that it teaches us to be masters of our passions, and to so control and guide them that the evils which they cause are quite bearable, and that we even derive joy from them all. Now therefore, that my mind is free from all cares, and that I have obtained for myself assured leisure in peaceful solitude, I shall apply myself seriously and freely to the general destruction of all my former opinions. I accept no principles of physics which are not also accepted in mathematics. Perfect numbers like perfect men are very rare. We call infinite that thing whose limits we have not perceived, and so by that word we do not signify what we understand about a thing, but rather what we do not understand. Traveling is almost like talking with those of other centuries. It is only prudent never to place complete confidence in that by which we have even once been deceived. I am accustomed to sleep and in my dreams to imagine the same things that lunatics imagine when awake. Every man is indeed bound to do what he can to promote the good of others, and a man who is of no use to anyone is strictly worthless. There is a little gland in the brain in which the soul exercises its functions in a more particular way than in the other parts. I was convinced that our beliefs are based much more on custom and example than on any certain knowledge. Even those who have the weakest souls could acquire absolute mastery over all their passions if we employed sufficient ingenuity in training and guiding them. Even if I were to suppose that I was dreaming and whatever I saw or imagined was false, yet I could not deny that ideas were truly in my mind. Good sense is the most equitably distributed of all things, because no matter how much or little a person has, everyone feels so abundantly provided with good sense that he feels no desire for more than he already possesses. A person has two passions for love and abhorrence. A big disposition to excessiveness has just a love, because it is more ardent and stronger. For I found myself embarrassed with so many doubts and errors that it seemed to me that the effort to instruct myself had no effect other than increasing discovery of my own ignorance. So far, I have been a spectator in this theater which is the world, but I am now about to mount the stage, and I come forward masked. Human wisdom remains always one and the same, although applied to the most diverse objects, and it is no more changed by their diversity than the sunshine is changed by the variety of objects which it illuminates. Although my knowledge grows more and more, nevertheless I do not for that reason believe that it can ever be actually infinite, since it can never reach a point so high that it will be unable to attain any greater increase. The object of music is a sound. The end, to delight and move various affections in us. And thus, the actions of life often not allowing any delay, it is a truth very certain that, when it is not in our power to determine the most true opinions, we ought to follow the most probable. It's the familiar love-hate syndrome of seduction. I don't really care what it is I say, I care only that you like it. Bad books engender bad habits, but bad habits engender good books. Common sense is the best distributed thing in the world, for we all think we possess a good share of it. For to be possessed of a vigorous mind is not enough, the prime requisite is rightly to apply it. It is best not to go on for great quest for truth, it will only make you miserable. The entire method consists in the order and arrangement of the things to which the mind's eye must turn so that we can discover some truth, and I shall always hold myself more obliged to those by whose favor I enjoy uninterrupted leisure, than to any who might offer me the most honorable positions in the world. But possibly I am something more than I suppose myself to be. When writing about transcendental issues, be transcendentally clear. Common sense is the most fairly distributed thing in the world, for each one thinks he is so well endowed with it that even those who are hardest to satisfy in all other matters are not in the habit of desiring more of it than they already have. How do we know that anything really exists, that anything is really the way it seems to us through our senses? It is contrary to reasoning to say that there is a vacuum or space in which there is absolutely nothing. The principal effect of the passions is that they incite and persuade the mind to will the events for which they prepared the body. For each of us there is a set limit to our intellectual powers which we cannot pass, and thereby make ourselves, as it were, the lords and masters of nature. Thus each truth discovered was a rule available in the discovery of subsequent ones. For how do we know that the thoughts which occur in dreaming are false rather than those others which we experience when awake, since the former are often not less vivid and distinct than the latter? I should consider that I know nothing about physics if I were able to explain only how things might be, and were unable to demonstrate that they could not be otherwise. If I found any new truths in the sciences, I can say that they follow from, or depend on, 5 or 6 principal problems which I succeeded in solving, and which I regard as so many battles where the fortunes of war were on my side. The first precept was never to accept a thing as true until I knew it as such without a single doubt.